All right, so we're about done with this. I'm sure that you're experiencing some 7 past sunset fatigue at this point. Don't worry, only 2 more weeks, that stuff. But at least, at this point, in all reality, you listen to these songs over and over and over again. So you lose some objectivity. You've got to take breaks. You need some other people's opinions. You want to listen to these on different sets of speakers to see how that stuff sounds. And yeah, you've got to sort of escape and listen to some other tunes, because sometimes you're working on genres that you're not particularly fond of, or bands that you're not too fond of, and you're sort of, you're faking it till you make it because you want to make some money, you want to get the job or whatever. But at this point, we've got our mix. It's sounding solid. We've done some really cool things, from the basic stuff through some more advanced sort of techniques with some plug-in automation and some fancy routing sort of things. So now we're ready to export this, or as Pro Tools likes to call it, bounce to disk, right? So we're going to do that, but before we really submit it, this is a habit that you should get into, is listening to how things sounded before and after. And there's a couple of different ways to approach this, but what I'm going to do is take, a version of the song that I exported before we did anything, and then we're going to import it back into this session, and we're just going to compare and contrast it. But the first things first is, here's my session that I have completely mixed. What I want to do is export this, or bounce to disk. Now, you have to be careful if you have any automation lanes open, or you're looking at automation view for something like this. Pro Tools is going to think you want to keep going down the timeline and export all of this. Similarly, if you have like some small edit over here, or if you have a selection made, it's only going to bounce that part of the timeline. So I want to make sure that I don't have any mutes on, or any soloed tracks or anything like that, and I don't have any weird selections. What I'm going to do is find something that's as long as the entirety of this tune, and in that case, it's this backing track. All right, so I'm going to take that and use that as my timeline selection. Go to File and Bounce to Disk. And I want to make sure, since we're going to eventually attach this to some video, I want my sample rate to be 48 kilohertz. Most people would argue you want a higher bit depth and stuff like that, but really, most thing that I'm concerned with at this point is making sure that it's going to match the frame rate kind of stuff with video. So 48 kilohertz is what we want. I'm calling it song number 1 because that's the one I was working on. You want to make sure that your offline button is checked, unless you want to sit here for the 3 minutes and 40 seconds and listen to, the song again in real time as it exports. You also want to make sure WAV files and interleaved, and since we're all going to be working on different systems, make sure that your bounce source is correct. It should be the same as the outputs on all of your audio tracks and your master fader and all that stuff. So out 1, 2. So real quick, I'm going to bounce that. It won't take too long. Now think all of these things that we've done, it's exporting through all these audio processors and stuff like that. So when I import this back in to this session and listen to it, I'm going to have to turn off or bypass the plugins that are on the master. Otherwise, what I imported is going to get fed back through those things. So it's going to have twice as much of these effects placed on it. That's not what I want. I want a natural sound of what it sounded like before and after. All right, so we're finished bouncing. If I look, it should have gone into my bounced files folder here. Here's song 1, unmixed. I'm going to import it by dragging and dropping and scooting it over to the beginning and making sure that that track is on the very bottom like this. And then here's song 1. The one that I just bounced out of here. So I'm going to put the unmixed one on top. Now, when I hit the solo button, this is how we've been working. If I hit another solo button, it just adds to, it adds it to the list of things that have been soloed. That's not necessarily what I want. I want for this circumstance. So I'm going to Options and changing my solo mode to Cancels Previous. That way, I'm getting song 1 unmixed soloed, and then when I hit the other one, it removes itself. So I'm going to be able to really easily kind of go back and forth and see how these things sound like that. Okay, so let's take a look. First of all, just observations about the waveform. As you can see, my mastered version is much more saturated. Look at that, the difference in the waveforms. And we can even blow these up a little bit just so you can kind of see. See the difference in those waveforms and how saturated this is? Now that could be good or bad. Let's let our ears decide, okay? So we're going to do the listening test here. Listening to unmixed and then mixed.
I'm falling off a cliff, chasing you. Telling a whole funeral, trying to find yourself a friend. Chained to the bottom, take 'em if you got 'em. Help you up so you can fall again. God knows I wanted to be wrong.
Wow, big difference, right?
After a while, it seems denial isn't helping cure anyone. There's nothing to say that
now here's listening to what I forgot to do. Just what I said is I didn't bypass these things on the master, so everything is louder than it was intended to be. So let's try this one more time. We're still going to hear a significant difference, but it shouldn't be as crushingly loud.
I'm falling off a cliff, chasing you.
It's much more moderate now. It was. See how much that reverb matters, and the panning, especially hearing things not all stacked up on top of each other, widens things out and makes it sound beautiful. So anyway, I think we were successful. It's, I mean, basically, you know, it's going to take practice and time and doing this over and over and over again to get really great at it. And I wouldn't really say that this is like the best mix ever, but it certainly is an improvement of where we started. And that's what we want, is to be able to, you know, in the world that we live in, doing this live event stuff, we want to be able to really quickly churn out this social media, YouTube content or whatever, make it sound great and get it out there. So I think that's exactly what we did. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you had fun with this project, and we're going to work on editing some video to this next. See you later.